like to call this city council meeting to order Tuesday, June the 2nd, 2020. If you'll stand with me so the mayor can lead us in prayer and the pledge.
Please bow with me. Lord, thank you for the community that we live in. We ask that you look over our country, also our citizens, to help us through this mess that has been created by a few individuals that does not define us as a whole. We ask that you watch over everyone that lives not only in Sebring but around the country and now around the world, that we have cool minds that follow your guidance and do as you would do and not as what others want them to do. We ask that you watch over the council tonight, give them guidance in making fair and right decisions, and we ask that all we do in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Schiff.
Here.
Detman.
Yes, here.
Ivy.
Here.
Lawrence.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here. If anyone in the audience has any business that's not on the agenda, please see Clerk Haley. She'll take care of that. We'll hear you. And mayor's report.
The only real thing I have on the mayor's report for the council to consider is the 4th of July proposal from fireworks to pyro display. It's pretty much the same kind of contract that we've signed in the past. The shells will be a little less than what we had last year. Last year we had that little $3,600 kicker or whatever that was that we had a pretty good show, but it's still I think a very good setup in that. So I'm asking you to approve this contract as presented.
I'll move it. Second.
Okay, any comments from the audience? Any comments from our council?
I would just like to say I think it's a great thing that we have this show every year. It does celebrate our country and our independence. I think it's a great thing. It really is. And, we pay a little bit, but a lot of businesses kick in as well, and some of the individuals. So it's a real community effort. And I just I'm all for it.
Thank you, Charlie.
Anyone else? Tom? No? All right. Kathy, will you poll the board?
Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, any councilman's concerns, comments, or liaison reports? Tom? Charlie?
Yep. I just want to say again, y'all read the newspaper. We had another pretty big fire on Sunday night, and I think our fire department did a pretty good job. They saved a big part of that building. It's a big building, 20,000 square feet, over on Highway 27, so it's very visible. And a lot of people don't realize that we have fires almost every day. So I like to call it to everybody's attention so you realize that our tax money is going for service, and it's a service that we need. So I think they probably saved a few jobs over there, but we may have lost a few as well. But nonetheless, it's very important that we have a good fire department. And I just want to say thanks to the guys that did the job, and I'm glad that nobody really got hurt.
They were out there a long time, too.
All night.
It was. Yep. That is a big building. It's an old building.
Right.
It goes back way back to a Chevrolet dealership, I think, at one point.
In the 60s,
Yeah.
late 60s.
Yeah. That's all.
Okay. Mark?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ivy?
Only I appreciate the community understanding what's going on and not joining in terms of violence, but just protest. And I think Chief gave us a pretty good rundown in the email on what this, I guess I want to say celebration, but remembrance. And they did their part, but it was peaceful, quiet. It's good on the community. Looks good on the community.
Well, I'm thankful that we live in a good city, a good county, and a good state. I know there's some stuff going on in the state, but we seem to have a good area here. I believe we have good officers. You know, Chief Detman could vouch for that, I'm sure, and Carl. And I'm thankful for that, very thankful for that.
Yes.
So even during the pandemic, we fared real well. So I'm thankful for that. Okay. We have a consent agenda. I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anyone want to discuss anything on the consent agenda? If not, Kathy?
Detman,
Yes.
Ivy,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, we have no old business. Let's move on to new business. 10A, the West Lake Jackson Infrastructure Project. At March 17, 2020 meeting, council approved the consultant service agent with Civil Serve Design Group for the Lake Jackson Infrastructure Project. At the meeting, Mark Brewer explained the various steps in securing state revolving loans. Finances for this project, the next step is the process is the submittal of the state revolving loan application, which is attached. The application contains 8 attachments. Craig Fuller is in the house. Would you like to talk to us, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This, to just summarize, is a requisite item that has to go through, and it's just passing a resolution that allows the signature of the actual loan documents. The loan documents are, there's an amortization schedule that actually is somewhat fluid. We were able to lock in, and I guess the timing kind of helped. The rates actually dropped. They were already low to begin with, but the rates are then dropping. We're hoping then over time that as we move forward, we might be able to grab on more and more, and and again keep it at that low rate, and just I believe Mark has actually called in, and let me check and see. Do you see him on the Zoom page? Okay, perfect. Any of the real details, he has filled out the application. He does these on a daily basis, but this is one of the early steps of it. My company, Civil Serve, is not charged. We're just trying to facilitate this and get Mark working through this, and obviously with the pandemic, things got held up a wee longer than what we had hoped, but it's moving, and again, this just allows what we already set into motion and allows a resolution for you to sign it. So I'll turn it over to Mark in case he's on, and hopefully we might be able to hear him.
Yes, I'm here. And so just to go over a couple of highlights real quick, the loan amount all in would be about $230,000 at an interest rate estimated at 0.807. That's just below 1%. The loan period or the term for this particular style of agreement for the planning stage is a 10-year repayment. The estimated start date of repayment will be around February 15th, 2022, and the current scheduled payment is estimated at right at about $12,000. And so those are kind of the highlights of this. The whole purpose of this program, or this part of the program, is to accomplish the facilities planning and studies that are necessary to identify technically feasible, cost-effective, permittable, environmentally sound projects that can be implemented to solve the problem that you guys have in terms of stormwater, and then there's also some wastewater projects that we looked at. And so this gets you a very low-cost way to begin the program, make some decisions, or get to the point where you have a document that is well-studied and well-presented, to identify projects to take to the next level, which would be design and then ultimately into construction. And without having to go through the entire document, I'm happy to answer any questions, or if there are specific pages that there are questions on, I'm happy to do that as well.
Okay. Anybody got any questions?
I just had one, I think you said a 10-year, but it's a 20-year payback, is that correct?
I can clarify that, so, yeah, go ahead, Mark, I'm sorry, here, there he is.
Yeah. For the planning loan itself, it is a 10-year payback. It is semi-annual payment for that time period. The one thing that can be changed later once you move into construction is the repayment dates, and also that can be moved and changed to a 20-year term. But what ended up happening several years ago is DEP had a few loans that did not proceed to construction, and so they didn't want to tie up a lot of money for a long period of time. So the initial period is 10, and then that would be adjusted in the event you do go forward to implement a construction project. It would go to be adjusted to a 20-year term and to coincide with the repayment on construction when you get to that point.
Okay, so the annual payment would be 24,000 and not 12. It's two payments of 12 each year, correct?
That is correct, yes.
That's all.
Anyone else?
I assume you guys have been through this, and everything's good in your estimation? Okay. I'll
Any
make a
questions?
motion, we approve resolution 2017 authorizing the city administrator to sign the loan applications as presented.
Second.
Anyone from the audience want to make a comment? Any more comments up here? All aboard.
Denton.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, we're moving on to 10B. This is a B, S, and A change order. Background: as a result of the process review as B, S, and A for implementation, city staff had the opportunity to participate in a web demonstration for the application, and were not originally included. That was not originally included in the agreement. After review and discussion, city staff would like to implement this application as they believe the cost efficient and will increase process efficiency. Additionally, customizing and required to meet reporting and processing requests by city staff. Ms. Robinson.
Good evening. I think you summed it up for me.
Well, that's the background.
There are some change orders here that we met, and they're going to provide some efficiencies and process improvements. Change order 2 is for the building department as well as code enforcement. And so they requested these changes. Change order 3 is a custom utility billing feature that the system is not able to currently accommodate. So we've requested these customizations. There's a cost involved. We also realized that we currently have a cemetery application, and BSNA has an application for cemetery as well, and there's a cost savings annually on the annual maintenance if we go to BSNA, and again, it'll just make us all in one system, and we won't have all of these multiple systems that we're using outside of our financial.
What kind of savings are we gonna have, Penny, estimate?
For these customizations?
Well, for the year, we have systems now. What do they cost us, and is this gonna be, half?
It's over,
We're paying over $105,000 currently for HTE. We're dropping down to
implementation costs.
Right,
These are
right.
implement-
The maintenance
costs.
costs, the maintenance costs are not gonna be, these numbers. I don't know whether or not you've got
I
a
do.
spreadsheet of the maintenance costs.
And when I mentioned the cemetery, the maintenance cost, we're currently paying about $1,000 annually, Paul? For Putnam?
A little bit more than that.
And we'll go to $465.
So it's
for
a good
maintenance.
savings.
Yes, sir. But now, when we look at the building department, there's this community development online as well as the citizen request and then the Blue Beam. These are all enhancements that when we were going through our process discovery with BSNA, that the building department found that these were opportunities that they would like to enhance their processes.
So are they necessary, or these enhancements?
I would say the change order 3 for utilities is necessary. The cemetery in the long run will be a cost savings. Is it necessary? No, because we do have another system currently. And the change orders for the building department, fortunately Greg's not here to speak for it, but he would probably feel that they're necessary. Do you have any input?
Well, I can just tell you that, you know, we have a budget meeting next week,
Yes, sir.
and we're gonna have to be tight, and we're gonna have to make cuts, literally, in every department. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanna make sure that we're not spending something that isn't necessary. I can appreciate if it's gonna save us money in the long run, I'm happy with that. But we wanna start the process for our budgeting by being frugal, so.
I just want to add for the building departments, what that does is it allows them to electronically upload all of the plans. With Blue Beam,
Mhm.
he'll be able to approve them, as well as Bobby being able to approve them over it.
Oh, without?
Fire.
Online?
Correct, it'll all be online.
There are enhancements that
Okay,
we don't
so-
currently have.
Well, that's worth it right there.
That's,
I mean, that's time.
it's stuff that we do manually now that
I
will
think they
become
can
more
turn it around
efficient.
faster.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yep, okay.
How's it gonna affect the billing and stuff with, like with the water department? Is that gonna be an issue, or is that part of this customizing?
Are you referring to the implementation and that we're needing to purchase some additional equipment?
No, I'm talking about monthly billing.
Mhm.
Is it gonna affect that, make it better, or is this customizing it to fit us?
These are reports that are generated as well as there's some processes that we currently do lookups and in BSNA we're not able to do those lookups the same as we're able to do them in HTE.
You're on board, right, obviously?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is all the department heads on board? That's a yes or a no.
There's probably one department head that doesn't agree with the customization cost. All other department heads are on board with those changes.
But I was happy they wanted to charge us for this.
Yeah, well, we're not happy with the charges, but I guess if it's gonna save us a lot of money on the long run, but, my question is how's it gonna affect you, billing and doing your job? Is this gonna hinder or help?
Well, there's an implementation process. And
Right.
yes, we're gonna have to work through those
Learn it. You're gonna have to learn
hiccups
it.
and all. And we are actually gonna start doing some of the training next week. We are very close to implementation. Finance goes live the 15th, and payroll and utilities will go live the following week, the 22nd, and then we'll have building department, occupational licensing in July. So we're very busy right now. We're really doing a lot of cleanup. We're making a lot of adjustments. And yes, it is going to be a learning curve, and it's an implementation, so it's not going to be easy. it's stressful on all of us right now. And do we expect there to be a delay in processes with the new system, or, you know, billing to the, we can bill quicker? I wouldn't expect that we're gonna bill any quicker. I mean, it's a system generated process, and then, you know, printing the bills and bursting the bills and getting them to, you know, now. But I'll let Bobby speak.
Like Penny said, there's a lot of training that needs to be done yet. I am cautiously nervous about this implementation date. They did have originally set for the 15th, and we got them to push it back till the 22nd, which gives us another week. But I've been through building conversions before, and there's always surprises that you don't see coming until they're there. So that, I guess that explains why I'm still nervous about the whole process. We did find out just recently, in fact, Paul discovered it, that our existing printer won't work. It's not compatible. So we're having to buy another printer, and unfortunately, some way to burst or cut the statements so that you can mail them. So those were expenses that we did not count on. But, you know, we do have the database that, as time permits, I think Paul's trying to you know, get a feel for it. Kim is working on it as well. So hopefully, with the Lord's help, we'll get through this.
Amen.
On the billing part, are you running anything parallel so that if you lose?
Yes, Kurt, we're having, I think they originally wanted just one billing. I said, I don't think that's enough. So we're planning on two. And unfortunately, the thing is, you know, we've got credit card payments coming in too. So there's a lot of moving parts to all this. And in order to do a complete parallel, of course, you're doing twice the work. We're short-staffed right now. We had an employee involved in a pretty bad automobile accident Friday going home from work. I'm sure she's going to be out for at least a couple of weeks, if not longer. So, and of course, the daily work doesn't stop just because you're doing a billing conversion. So you've got a lot going on. But, staff is committed, and like I said, there may be a lot of overtime involved in this. We just don't know yet. But if it goes the way all other last billing conversion I went through was for Florida Power Corporation, and I was even selected to be a kind of train the trainer. So I went over to St. Pete, spent some time over there, and came back and trained the entire Ridge Division, as we called it back then. We went live. There were problems.
Was that with the trainer, or?
No, there was actually there. It was with the software, but yeah, whatever went wrong, I'm sure I got blamed for it. But anyway, there's always surprises. No matter how good you think things are, there are a few surprises. And the training is being done remotely. Never have we trained before, or anywhere I've ever worked before did we training remotely. It was always an instructor right on hand, looking over your shoulder, helping you with whatever problems. We don't have that luxury this time around. So a little nervous about
the whole country. Everybody's doing
yes,
it remotely.
you're absolutely right. Yes, sir.
It's the new world.
So there's some unknowns about how effective the training's going to be. Kind of why we're wanting to play with it now,
Yeah.
to try to get some practice with it before we get into that, so we know what questions to even ask.
So I guess bottom line for me, you're not gonna miss any billing because you'll have a dual
Right, no,
thing
sir,
going. You'll still be able
if things don't tie out, we'll just stick with HD and send the bills out we generate from HD, and we wanna make sure things are right before we
Gotcha.
pull the plug on the old software.
Okay.
And we have HT until the end of our fiscal year, until September 30th.
Right.
We have paid for it, and we are doing parallels with payroll as well. It'll be challenging, but we're trying to be optimistic, and we are all working in a different environment than what we ever probably dreamed that we'd be working in. And our trainers are in Michigan, and they are just now next week, I think, going to be able to leave their homes. They haven't opened their restaurants or anything. So it's definitely a difficult time for everybody. But
Okay.
Penny, is there any possibility that you may get trainers down here once things lighten up a little bit?
there is a possibility that they're Thursday that, in July, they may be able to, if their corporation has taken the stand that they're not doing, any travel. You know, they're not sending their people, traveling right now, and that's understandable. But there very well could be. They have added additional training to our schedule. They are trying to accommodate us. They understand our concerns. You know, I feel like that they're doing what they can for us. They're working. I email them, they respond with an answer, very quickly. We have updates, meetings weekly. When we go live, we will have, status meetings twice a week of where we're at and, you know, how things are going. It's just gonna be a new process, and it's with any new system.
Yeah. Tom, you had a.
Bobby had mentioned that his printer wouldn't be compatible with this particular system. So my question would be directed to Penny, are there any other departments that are affected by this in the same manner?
We have purchased receipt printers. Paul ordered the receipt printers that are compatible with BSNA, and one of the additions is at the police department. The police department did not, prior to this, they did not have a register that they were hooked up to the financial software to actually take a payment and receipt it through the system through a batch, and they're gonna do that going forward.
I just want to comment on the printer. We're going from a $10,000 printer to $1,600 printer. It'll all be laser printer now. The burster's a little, or what we'll be using bursting is a little bit more expensive. It will be close to $8,000 for it, but it's a blade that does all the cutting for that. But that should hopefully be a one-time expense. I'll retire hopefully with that one here. It's got a blade that's changed. They say it should get about 5 years out of it. But we could, if you got somebody who can sharpen a blade locally, we can sharpen them. And he said last 4 years.
How about the ink for that? You know, my personal printer, the ink is the expensive part.
It's still gonna be a laser printer, so it's still gonna do. I mean, you're looking at the expense of that, but it's still, in the long run, it's gonna be cheaper
Comparable
than
to what we have now.
compared to
Currently, we use a dot
matrix.
You use a dot matrix?
Yeah.
And that's one
That's
thing.
why it's not compatible.
I got you.
And this also has,
It's not compatible with anything anymore.
except for banking. But no, it'll have a barcode on it as well that, when they come in, they'll be able to scan it, so they haven't actually typed the whole account number in there. They'll be able to scan the barcode, and it'll pull the customer up as well. So all that'll be on there as well.
Sounds good.
We're
On the
moving
bill.
towards a Microsoft-based system as opposed to the AS400 system, so
Right.
there's some changes that we're having to make.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I'm sure with technology like it is, once the bugs are worked out, it'd probably be 100% better, but
We're looking forward to it.
yeah.
And I think Paul possibly may be coming back to council at some point. You may have,
Bob still.
we might be able to sell a piece of equipment that we currently have, that is not very old, that is not compatible.
The old burster.
The old burster, it's relatively new. In the last year or two, we purchased it, and, but he may have a buyer, and so instead of going through gov deals, and he's kind of working that right now.
Okay. Any more questions? Anyone from the audience? We need a motion.
I make a motion we approve, 1 BSNA change orders 2-4 and number 2B-A, number 65 is presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Kathy, please poll.
Benton.
Yes.
Heidi.
Yes.
Lance.
Yeah.
Stewart.
Yep.
Conrad.
Yes. Okay, 10C. This would be Mr. Swain. I'll let him, he can shorten the background. Or-
10C would.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Mrs.
one-
Oshia.
I'm sorry, Miss Oshia. How'd I get that in the way? Okay, back up, we're going to
I'll be coming
10C.
up on something similar later.
Purchasing threshold adjustment and purchasing policy update. Ms. Ocean. You
You're not gonna
can?
read this time.
Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was asked to review, the current purchasing policy and, the thresholds of, the fixed assets as well. After I did some research, which was, included in the attachment to the AIS, I found that a lot of other agencies of the same size, population, have higher thresholds, as far as, the purchasing thresholds as well as the fixed asset thresholds. So, and being that we're moving to the new BSNA, software, there's some things in the purchasing policy that don't really, work with the new, financial system. Some of the other items are no longer cost effective, and, some of the other things, just can be updated to make things run more efficiently. So what we're recommending is that, council approve our, minimum threshold in purchasing, to be $5,000. But we're also asking that you, for your input as far as, do you want that threshold, just the department head has that authority up to 5,000, and which would be considered just best value. I did some charts in here, that shows what your options are. 1 cent up to 5,000, there would not be any quotes, it's just best value. Basically one quote, which is considered the best value. That's approved by the department head as well as the purchasing agent. Option 2 would be, 1 cent up to 1,000, that would be the best value. And then we could require 3 verbal quotes, from, excuse me, 1,000 up to 5,000. Option 3 would be to have best value 1 quote, 1 cent up to 2,500, and then 2,500 and 1 cent up to 5,000 would be 3 verbal quotes. Right now, the department head has the authority to authorize a purchase order without any other authority above them, up to $5,000. The purchase order then has to be approved by me, and I generate the purchase order. Right now, from $1,000 up to 5,000, we do require 3 verbal quotes. So we kind of want to get away from requiring those verbal quotes, only because sometimes that bogs down the system. If you're giving the department head the authority up to 5,000 with other, the purchasing agent also approving it, then you know, it's just to make the processes better. But we want your input on what you think you would like to see happen.
It would still be approved by 2 people, not just one. You and the department head.
Yes.
Okay.
Trying to balance the ease with which you run a department and.
But with some safety.
With being fiscally responsible.
Right.
I'd like to, maybe throw out there and say that there's a big difference in prices depending on who you go to. And just getting one price on something that's as high as $4,500 to me is not prudent. I know when I'm spending my own personal money, I'm gonna get multiple quotes, anything over a few thousand. And I would like to see that we take care of the taxpayers' money as well as I try to take care of my own personal money. So I would certainly like our department heads to get 3 verbal quotes on anything that's of substantial money, and you know, $4,000 is substantial to me. I would be inclined to go with option 3 to give them the up to $2,500. one quote. But beyond $2,500, I think we're getting into some more serious money, and I think that department head needs to get at least 2 or 3 quotes. So I would be more inclined to go with option 3.
So are the departments have mandated to take the lowest quote?
If they provide, it depends. There's a lot of different circumstances. Typically, yes, it's the lowest quote. If they're not going with the lowest quote, then they have to provide the reasoning why they're not going with the lowest quote.
Go ahead.
Does 2,500, the option 3, does that, would that limit or really not satisfy where you're trying to go? It's workable?
It's workable. I mean, that's why we're giving the options, because
Okay.
I think that.
$1,000 today.
It's
Better than today.
yes, it's $1,000.
So give them another 1,500.
Anybody else got any
Lisa,
comments?
I think in the past though, in some of the dealings you found, it's hard sometimes to get 3 quotes, isn't it? On some stuff, or?
It is sometimes hard to get 3 quotes on certain things, depending on what it is that you're trying to purchase. A lot of times, it is a small community, and sometimes there's not a lot of businesses that locally that can provide whatever it is that you need. And if you are then going outside of your community to get something, usually there's additional costs in travel or shipping or whatever. So that's taken into consideration, but they have to just document that. That has to be documented to me so that I can document it when I issue a purchase order. So a year from now, when the auditors pull this and say, oh, why don't we have 3 quotes? I don't have to say, oh, I don't know. So it's documented right there, and then there's no problem. Then everyone's happy. But that has to be provided. It's just documentation. And that's what I make sure they have, which doesn't make everyone happy all the time, because I'm telling you, they have to have it. But
So that would be 3 verbal quotes if available then.
Yeah.
yes, if available, yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I can live with that.
So I would be comfortable with option 3 as well.
Me too.
Okay. There's more to the.
Yep.
That was the first little part. There's another option that we would ask for your input on. Right now, the city administrator approves all purchase orders that are $5,000 and greater. Currently, if it's at $5,000, it's approved by the department head, approved by the purchasing agent, approved by the finance director, and also the city administrator. So he is asking for your recommendation as to his threshold on whether it needs to stay at 5,000, or if you would be comfortable with 10,000 or 15,000.
Yeah, I'll speak on that real quick and just say, doubling that threshold is more reasonable rather than the triple on it. We are constantly under inflation, so I understand that we have to change these numbers on occasion in order to keep up with things. So, doubling that threshold would be more comfortable with me rather than the tripling.
I'm good with that.
Just one question with that, in light of where we may be going with the budget next year. I'm hearing a discouraging word across the prairie. That maybe we need tight, to maintain control at the administrator level. I don't know that would make a big difference.
I'll speak to that. I mean, first of all, not only do you have the department head, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
Who is approving here.
Sure.
But you have the purchasing agent and the finance director. So at some point, sometimes it seems fairly silly for me to be approving purchases that are $6,000 or $7,000 when we already have three people who are looking at those and making that approval process.
It's
So
all
in my
on county
mind,
anyways, right?
in my mind, I really shouldn't be looking at anything less than 10. And
Throw it
I
out
had,
there.
you know, I had difficulty, you know, we talked about, you know, going higher than that, 15, 20, and I said, you know, we don't have that many purchases for the most part that are over 10. So that's a legitimate number to look at.
That way only 2 people get in trouble, not 3.
Yeah. But it doesn't make it, you know, there's enough out there above the 5, but less than 10 that I would say, I really don't need to be looking at those.
Well,
When
I just
we've got,
posed,
you know,
I just posed that as a thought.
but
I've been a department head, I know what I ask for. Sometimes what I think I can justify and verbalize, but you're right.
But we still have, you know, it's gotta get through,
these
it's gotta
two.
get through Lisa and Penny as well, so.
Well, it was just throw it out there.
Right. Understood.
And nobody saluted, so we'll move on.
So the 10 sounds
So-
okay then?
Push the 10.
10? That's good.
We also, are proposing, as I said, a new purchasing policy. These items that we were just discussing, will be, put into the purchasing policy. We'd like to present that at the next council meeting. And some of the things that are being updated, I've provided in this agenda. One of the things that we're proposing is a change to the local vendor preference policy. Currently, a local vendor, if they meet the criteria to qualify as the local vendor, because it's based on a percentage of the bid that comes in. Right now, if they meet that criteria, then they're given the contract, but at the same price as what the local vendor bids. So it's actually costing the city and taxpayers more to give it to a local vendor. Which is, I mean, it's good that we're giving it to a local vendor, but it's also costing the taxpayers more. So the new proposed local vendor preference, what it does is it has the same percentages, it's the same criteria, but this offers the local vendor a chance to meet that low price, meet the low bid. And if they choose to meet that low bid, then the taxpayers are not spending more money than what was bid, and it's still going to a local vendor. And I believe that most agencies that still do have a local vendor preference policy, this is kind of the scenario that they use. The old way that we have done it is really not, it's really not cost effective.
Costs the city more money.
Yeah, it does.
It doesn't,
Yeah.
it costs more money and,
My only question to that, though, and I'm gonna refer to Mr. Swain, is that legitimate, is that legal for them to come down and after the bids have been done and say, we're gonna now match that bid?
Well, if you could give it to them as the non-lowest bidder, I don't know why you couldn't give it to them at the reduced price. It doesn't do any greater disservice to the otherwise out-of-county low bidder, but it does save the city money.
So everybody understands, right? So, for example, you have a out-of-county bidder who bids the low bid. If the city bidder can bid 7% above that and still win the bid, if you will,
Right.
currently today. And then by this process that Lisa is proposing, that person wouldn't, they could theoretically win from perspective of if it's within 7%, as long as they're willing to do the job that the out-of-county bidder is willing to do at their bid, they would be awarded the bid.
And And
So-
if they didn't meet that other low bid, they would not get the job.
Correct. So in the center column of, on page 2, you'd save $8,250 if
Right.
the local Sebring bidder was willing to do it at the 100,000 price. If they were not, and there was no county bidder, you would give it to the out of county at the 100. So you're paying the same dollar amount. It's a question of whether or not somebody has the ability to
So really,
jump ahead.
in essence, was an advantage to the city, but definitely a disadvantage to the local bidder that might come within 7%, but not the outside.
You're putting a 7% collar on there. If they come in 10%, they can't.
They're not eligible for the opportunity at that point. And I don't know how often they come. How often would you say they come within 7%?
I use, local vendor preference has come into play maybe twice in the 5 years that I've been here on a bid, and maybe twice on quotes. And it's, honestly, the local vendors are usually the low bidders anyhow. It doesn't happen very often, but it's.
Not me.
That's what I heard. Never the lowest bidder.
But he does good work.
That's what Charlie was just talking about.
He was, yes. But I permit my jobs.
I think a good example of what you're talking about was when we had Highlands Office Supply versus Office Depot. City was buying citywide paper from Highlands Office Supply for that reason. But now they're not even here.
Right.
And we don't have a local paper distributor. So she's right, it happens now very infrequently.
But that, I mean, that's is coming, and if you approve that, then we'll put that in the purchasing policy. Another thing that's
Lisa, one
I'm
more
sorry.
question before you go on to that. When you get a verbal quote, do you also factor in the 7 or 5% for a verbal quote? I mean, we know all about the sealed bids and all of that, but what about the verbal quote?
that doesn't happen. I mean, that wouldn't really come into play very often,
Okay.
because most of the time, if you're dealing with a small dollar value, it's gonna be local anyhow, unless
Yeah.
it's just not available local.
They're going to call the local people to get those quotes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and then also, do you factor in the shipping, and it may not be local, because local, they're probably gonna bring it right to you, you're gonna pick it up. But if you have to go outside of either the county or, you know, or off the internet or something like that, do you figure in shipping and the total cost?
I would figure in everything.
Yeah.
As the
Are all
total
the
cost.
department heads and the purchasers in each of those departments doing the same thing?
Yes, but like I said, and if they have a situation where they want to use a local vendor,
Yep.
they usually contact me and say, can you tell me, can we use this local vendor? And like I said, it's not happened very often. But I'll figure it out, and I'll let them know whether or not
Yep.
they qualify and we can use them. The other, well, I guess the big thing, was that we wanna raise the bid threshold, to $50,000. Currently, it's at $35,000. And when I did my research, I think that,
You've got 3 cited on the last page of your memo.
did I put it on the last page of the memo?
Yeah, it's under,
Alachua, Stewart, and Vero.
Oh, yeah, those are comparable populations. I had gone through and looked at all of the bids we've done, in the past 5 years. And other than those annual bids that we typically do for like our lawn maintenance and things like that, that we wanna get competitive bids, whether or not they're over the $35,000 threshold or not. We wanna have that annual contract that we can renew for like, you know, janitorial supplies, things like that. We had very, very few bids that were between 35,000 and 50,000. All of our competitive bids were well over 50,000. So by changing this requirement, all it's doing is allowing, they'd still have to get 3 quotes, they'd still have to get it approved by council. It's just eliminating that process, of having to go out for a competitive bid. And I think that's,
So the sealed bid process is, you know, I'm gonna say a fairly lengthy process that involves advertising, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So we're just pushing that limit to 50,000.
Right, from 35.
From 35.
That makes sense.
You're still
You're
gonna have to
still
get, you
getting
gotta
three
get
bids.
quotes.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta get quotes, whether they're verbal or whether they're written.
and even if.
This just pushes the
And
sealed
even
bid.
the written quotes, between 35 and 50,000 still have to come before council. I mean, it can be on just the consent agenda, but they still have to have council's approval. It's not, they can't just, put in a purchase order.
Yeah.
It's still gonna come before council.
I'm pretty comfortable with that because you do still have to get the 3 written.
Okay.
Another, change that's gonna be made is the advertising in the old, purchasing policy, or the current purchasing policy. It requires us to advertise in the newspaper for competitive bids. It requires 2 consecutive weeks of advertising in the local newspaper. And laws have changed, things have changed, prices have changed. We currently use vendor registry as our official bidding website. It's where I post all bids. I went with vendor registry when the county went with vendor registry, and the reason is because I figured that it would be good if vendors are registered with our county, and we use the same bidding portal, then we could have like a pool, a local pool of vendors. It would be good if they do business with the county, well maybe they'll do business with the city also. I used to use public purchase, and I had a very difficult time getting vendors, even local vendors, to register, and so I felt like I wasn't getting the bids that came in. It just wasn't reaching vendors. So we use vendor registry now. They if the vendor is not registered directly with the city of Sebring, if they're registered with that commodity code with vendor registry with any other agency in the United States under that particular commodity code, I could recruit them to the city of Sebring, because I've just put out a bid that includes your commodity codes, what you do business as. And so it reaches a lot of businesses that are registered with vendor registry. That being said, the law doesn't require us to advertise in local newspapers unless it does, if there's certain things, it has to be over a certain dollar amount, and it has to be for construction. But we don't want to have to advertise in the newspaper. It's very costly. I ask the department heads now if they want to advertise, if it's something that will only attract local people, local vendors, then it's a good thing to advertise in the newspaper, because it still goes into online newspapers. So, we just don't want to be obligated to have to advertise 2 consecutive weeks in the
But you're
newspaper.
still gonna advertise once, or not at all?
Not, only when we're required by law.
Okay. And when you say by law, is that local, or is that town and state, or?
State.
Because of the
State
grants that
sta-
we're-
state
State statute. Yeah.
Local advertising has gotten very expensive recently.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so the question is, vendor registry doesn't cost us anything, is that correct?
It doesn't cost us anything.
So, what's it cost, what's our, I don't know whether or not you have an annual number, what's our annual cost for advertising on items that are related to purchase? You know,
You mean, like in the newspaper?
Yeah, give me a 2-week figure, just give me a
Well,
one item, 2 weeks.
I just, one item, 2, I don't know.
It wasn't free though, right?
Oh, no. If for,
Okay.
one item for 2 publications in our local newspaper would probably be $200.
So we're spending thousands of dollars a year on this,
Yes.
without a doubt. Okay, great.
There's a little.
Well, my question is, who reads the newspaper anymore?
Yes, exactly.
Well, and we can encourage our local vendors to register on vendor registry.
Right,
So
right.
if they register on vendor
but-
registry, they get the information, they get emailed, that's an automatic, they get an automatic email anytime we put
Which is
something
a
out
good
to bid.
process.
So,
Could we send them all a letter to encourage them to
When
join the registry?
when we went with vendor registry got a list of all of our vendors in our financial system
Okay.
and sent them emails themselves.
Good.
Good.
Very good.
cause the vendors end up having, the vendors pay or fund vendor registry, that's fine, right?
No, no,
How's it
it's,
funded?
vendor registry has, the vendors, it's free for them to come and register with the city of Sebring. If they wanted to register their business with every agency in the state of Florida, then it's gonna cost them money. If they only register with certain vendors, it doesn't cost them anything. There's also modules that we can use as the agency that they charge for also. Contracts, online bidding, which has been free, they've supplied for free during the pandemic. But that's normally something that they charge for.
Okay.
I think, other than that, we are going to, also work on our capitalization policy. We want to increase our fixed asset threshold to 5,000 also. And according to, the Government Finance Officers, is that association? That's the national, organization. That's one of their, that's considered the best practice is 5,000 as the minimum
What is
fixed
ours
asset.
at now?
I'm sorry?
What is ours at now?
1,000.
$1,000.
And again, with inflation and price increases, there's so many things that now cost more than $1,000 where it didn't before, and we still have to register it as a fixed asset. I think that what we need to do is come up with those assets or those items that will need to be inventoried, not necessarily considered a fixed asset, but items that will need to be inventoried, and we'll have to keep track of those separately. But the fixed assets, we'd like that to be pushed to 5,000, so eventually, when we get that ready to go, then we'll be moving that, and I think that we want it retroactive. back to the beginning of the fiscal year. To make everything uniform. I think that covers all the changes. Bob, did you remember any other changes?
So, to the last page, the purchasing thresholds, let's kind of reconcile that with the first decision they made.
Okay.
So that'd be
First-
2,500 to 5,000.
Yeah.
Then that'd be 10,000 to 35,000.
For the city administrator?
So, or are we just taking city administrator out and we do 5,000 to 35,000 with everybody else other than the city administrator?
Yeah, and I'll make city administrator from,
Mm-hmm. You'll add him in at the 10 and up.
I'll do him separate, yes.
Right. Okay.
So requested motion is council approves option 3, authorization level. City administrator approval level of $10,000. The local vendor preference policy that's presented.
The new one.
Mhm.
And,
Council approves increasing the purchasing thresholds to coincide with the implementation
yes.
of BSNA software.
that's not accurate.
Yeah, yes, because, we'll go live with BSNA on the 15th, of June. So,
The statement is we will implement this when we go live with BSNA. So we will not implement this purchasing policy until we go live with BSNA, which is coming out. When, Penny?
the
On the 15th?
15th, just the thresholds, the $5,000 threshold, that is what I'm asking to coincide with BSNA. The purchasing policy we'll bring that before you for the 16th.
Next meeting.
Right.
We just don't want to start BSNA off with $1,000 threshold, the old ones, and then the next day
Go
have
in,
to switch it
edit.
to
Yeah.
the 5,000. Yeah.
So when they're here on site, they'll set up these purchasing thresholds in the system per what you all do tonight.
Well, Mr. Naglick, since I did not know you were gonna do that motion, I need to repeat it.
It's what's,
I
No.
think
That's
what's
actually
stated.
not what's here, right?
No.
Because, so it would be option number 3. The
Three.
council approves option number 3.
Right, got that?
And the
City administrator
operation
will-
level,
10,000.
of up to 10,000.
Got that.
And the new
Mhm.
include local vendor preference policy.
That's it.
Okay,
And I still don't understand the last part.
That council approves increasing the purchasing thresholds to coincide, the implementation of these purchasing thresholds to coincide with the implementation of BSNA software.
well, are we
It's
raising
that-
it
so
from
I can read
35,000 to
that.
50,000? I thought that
So-
was a request.
Yeah, but we'll do that with the implementation of BSNA software, which will be on the 15th of June.
Yeah, but
Right,
doesn't
but
it
he
have to
wants
be
that
part of the
motion.
motion, it has to raise it from 35,000 to 50,000, doesn't it?
Effective
Well-
June 15th.
I understand the implementation date, but we still have to make a motion that we raise it from 35 to 50,
Correct.
correct?
Right, which is what, that's the paragraph above.
yes.
So the
The-
Paragraph,
purchasing
but what
thresholds.
paragraph?
That's the motion, Mark.
I'm not making it.
Okay, so I will spell it out. I'm requesting that the purchasing thresholds, be increased effective at the implementation of BSNA as follows. 1 cent to 2,500
That's option 3.
Just do option
I was
Yes.
gonna say option 3, okay.
is, best value. 2,500,
But I'm not gonna say all that, I'm just saying option 3.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, option 3. Then, 5,000,
10,000.
and 1 cent, up to 35,000.
Wait a minute. What happened to the 10,000?
What happens is that.
I'll go back to that.
Yeah, but I'm doing it in order from this thing, don't skip around.
This is convoluted and
Yeah.
messy.
It is. Cause the
Two
next
is
thing you
two.
did was
It makes no
$10,000.
sense.
Right. Take, mark that 2.
is the city administrator's threshold at $10,000.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Got that, understand that.
Then take the last column here,
Yes, sir,
that's it. For
And
the
what?
vendor preference, for the local preference.
got it.
Then the
And
bid
then
advertising,
35,000.
Got the advertising, got it.
right, and the capitalization policy to 5,000.
Got it, got it.
Okay.
So read
And
it
then
back,
the next
Kathy.
page is
No.
the,
You read it back, I'll make the motion.
and then the next page, your purchasing thresholds.
The June, purchasing threshold, got it. Got it,
So there's like 5 parts to it, is that correct?
yeah, 6 or 7 parts.
So
Tom said so moved. I need a second.
Okay.
by Charlie.
Oh,
Yeah.
hang on
You
back
have to,
here.
and you
Charlie's
have
the
to do
second.
this option, this part, you put option 3 in there.
There's little asterisks, next to the to be determined by council. So the first asterisk under the first
That goes
section,
option.
1 cent
Right,
to
that-
5,000
that goes to 2,500,
is
right,
option
got that.
3.
2,500 to 5. Shoot, I did one. Yeah, I knew that.
Option 3 is 2,500.
Taken out. Yeah, 10,000.
Okay, I thought you were saying that was the next motion.
They got it.
And then we still did that one.
And we had a motion and a second.
Who's on first?
And y'all are gonna approve these
I don't know.
minutes, so.
We got a motion and a second.
That $10,000 for city administrators completely separate. Is that right there?
I got it. He taught me, Mark just,
Okay.
I mean, why'd I call you Mark? Bob just went over.
She's
to me. I got it,
confused.
I got it.
I got a compliment.
Yep.
At least she didn't call you Ross.
Wow.
Okay.
The $10,000 doesn't have, if their purchasing thresholds is separate from the $10,000 for city administrators.
Right.
Got it. I think I got it.
Okay,
Well,
we
no,
had,
I did the
we
minutes.
had a
I got it.
motion,
The
we
minutes
had a
of the
mo-
next meeting anyhow.
Tom Detman made the motion.
Yes, sir. Charlie made the
and-
second.
That's right.
Got it.
Is any more questions?
No.
Is everybody confused now? Pull the board.
Stedman,
Yes.
Ivy,
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yeah.
Stewart,
I guess.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Next time we only have 2 issues at one meeting.
I mean,
Sorry,
thank you,
thank you.
Lisa, for the mind-boggling.
Three at a time, Lisa, from
Yeah.
now on, no more than 3.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, moving right along to, I'm gonna go to 12A this
Seems like
time.
we should.
Good. We
Uh,
have to do a separate one for your authorization to go to 10?
Was that not in the?
No, that was
It
in
was
there.
in
That was in.
It was in
That
there.
was in the motion.
Yeah, that
It
was
was
in
in
the
there?
motion.
Okay.
You voted yes.
What
Yeah.
a disaster.
Yeah.
That was option,
That
option
was really
3A.
convoluted.
That way. Yeah, it's in there.
That was option 3A.
Okay, all right.
Okay, moving to 12A.
12A will be easier.
First
Promise.
Amendment to Highlands Art League lease. Would you like to take over?
Yes, sir. You'll recall the Art League has asked to give back a portion of that which it leases. If you'll flip to the last page, that Exhibit A, they're going to keep what's in red. They, up till now, had what was within that whole blue area, and then the parcel immediately to the south. So this is allowing them to keep the portion that's in red. They give back the balance of that, and they keep the Moda building, which is over closer to Highlands Art League. And it terminates June 1, 2021, unless provision of the existing lease that allowed for earlier termination kicks in.
Can we,
And the Moda building's a separate lease?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
can we make this like a 5-year renewal, but
We can.
with 1-year kickouts? I'm just thinking, you wanna bring this back every year, you guys wanna look at this every year, but this lease, but just do it with 5, consecutive automatic renewals unless 30 days prior or whatever you follow the,
Do it a annual lease,
it's an annual lease still, but it's got a 5-year term on it.
renewable.
So we don't have to keep looking at it.
You want it to be at the city's election, whether to renew it?
Yeah, cause they can
Because
walk
you
away.
may have something that comes up.
Yeah, they
Right.
can always walk away, that's the problem
Right.
with the one-sided lease. So, yeah, the city's option to, if we
Okay.
give them 30 days notice. then
Right,
we
but
get
I'm just
that.
thinking, you don't have to look, if you set it automatically renewal unless 30 days prior we kick them out.
Yeah.
So we don't have to look at it each year.
Right, that would be fine with me, as long as we have that option
Yeah.
to.
You wanted a 5
Mark, I thought this one was gonna
To
be
make this
easier.
an automatic
Didn't work out
renewal
that way.
lease.
I'm sorry?
So I thought it was gonna be easier
Four
than the last
consecutive
agenda
I'm
item.
gonna change the verbiage.
He's gonna write it, so.
I'm gonna go home. Automatic renewal for 4 consecutive years.
You've obviously got
Four
to be used
renewals.
to working from home.
Wow, I was not, thank you. I worked here every day.
Oh, I stand corrected then, and I
Okay.
apologize.
I did.
All right, so we need a motion, is that what we need?
Renewals with a 30-day.
Yes, sir. With the change that proposed by the mayor.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the First Amendment to the Highlands Art League lease as presented, with the one exception that we will move to a 5-year automatically renewable at 1-year intervals unless we give them a 30-day.
At the city's election, yes, sir.
So, yeah.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. That was pretty easy. Any more questions? Comments?
What's the threshold? That's what I want.
Okay. Hold the board, please.
Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, now, we're gonna do 12B.
At the risk of great personal harm to myself, we will launch into 12B, which is a proposed amendment to the purchasing ordinance. On the dais, you have gotten an updated agenda item summary. This covers everything from $50,000 and up. It doesn't cover below because it authorizes the policy to be created, and that's what will be a separate document. That's what Lisa spoke to you about. She spoke up to 50, this is 50 and up. I'm happy to answer any questions. I can walk through it if you like. This is essentially, it dovetails with what you saw, or who'd like a longer version of this?
Nobody.
Me, please. Don't do it, don't do it.
So, while you're debating whether to ask any questions, let me read the title of the proposed ordinance on first reading, and it's an ordinance amending Division 2 of Article 5 of Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Sebring to amend and clarify the purchasing policy and procedures of the City of Sebring, providing for bidding only where an item of expense exceeds $50,000, authorizing the creation of purchasing policy and procedures by resolutions, providing for severability, providing for conflict, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Anybody got a motion?
I make a motion we approve first reading of the ordinance and schedule second and final reading for June 16th, 2020.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion, any more questions from the audience or councilman? Kathy?
Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, city administrator's business? Don't have anything? Okay. And that will bring us to you, Miss Phelan.
Council needs to approve the payment of bills, please.
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Whole board.
Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Anything else?
Don't forget the budget workshop, a week
The-
from Friday.
The 12th.
12 at 9:30
12.
a.m.
You guys want lunch, right? Because we're gonna be here all day.
Breakfast, okay, breakfast.
I only put an hour down on the web calendar.
Are you serious?
Hour.
You
Hour
better,
and a
you
half.
better readjust that.
Are you serious? Hour and a half?
It's just an estimated time.
It's gonna be a power hour.
You probably need breakfast, lunch, and
dinner.
dinner.
Right.
And just as a
Dinner?
little note, if we can get any and all the information possible.
Tom, you need to stay.
Let us know how we're gonna have to cut back, how far we're gonna have to cut
So-
back. That would be a big
Yeah.
help.
So I would,
I'm trying to get information from
yeah.
We're trying to get that information, although it's pretty difficult.
So what would be ideal, and I know it's not completely possible, but you know, where we were successful this year and and where we were not successful in our budget, the numbers, the areas where there's vast differences, and how much you feel as though we're gonna be in arrears based on the income we had and we're gonna have. That's huge, we have to know that, cause that's the number we're gonna have to cut. And you take that number and across the board, every department gets hit. In my mind, that's the way to go. Everybody gets hit to balance the budget.
I agree, and I think that this budget workshop will set the tone for our liaison meetings, so that everybody has a better understanding, because the departments have already submitted their budgets.
Yep.
And that's part of the information that we are going to provide to you for the budget workshop.
Okay.
And as well as some trends and revenue, and what I know so far, increased rates that I know of so far
Mhm.
with retirement. We know health insurance is a concern.
Mhm.
The market for our, our liability, property, workers' comp insurance. Expecting,
Yeah.
an increase there. So it's significant. So those are some of the items that I have listed.
Mhm.
And if you have anything that you can think of that you would like for me to speak on,
Yeah.
you could please get me those specifically. I'll make sure that they're included in the agenda and I can be prepared for it.
Yeah, that
Okay.
would be great.
That's a good idea, thank you.
Yeah.
Might as well erase that board off of there.
Okay.
I'm hopefully gonna have better numbers. I'm waiting for our audit.
Thursday, and the economy's been so well, too.
Sure.
All of a sudden, boom.